Hey, this podcast is brought to you by King Arthur Capital Group. Fund your fight camp, showing fighters how to leverage credit and capital so they can treat their career like a business. Love sharing that information with as many people out there as possible in the combat sports world, a world where fighters are more comfortable and stable throughout, every stage of their career will only be a better world for the sport. So if you're looking to treat your career a little bit more like a business, looking to make your career work a little better for you and make sense in your life, hit up King Arthur Capital Group and David King Arthur McElroy on Instagram at Fund Your Fight Camp. Check out Fight Club Crate, mystery fight gear, knockout prices, undisputed value, combat sports boxes delivered monthly. Use my promo code TAPTHAT15 at Fight Club Crate for 15% off your first purchase, and follow those folks on Instagram at Fight Club Crate. Very cool stuff. They're adding new products from new cool companies and everything all the time. Very unique products. Finally, a winner of a gift idea for the combat connoisseur in your life. And finally, Substats is the analytics and intelligence platform for competitive grappling, giving promoters, leagues, commentators the data they've never had, matchmaking tools, athlete profiles, event breakdowns, and match analysis powered by computer vision. If you compete, if you promote, or you're just a fanatic about competitive grappling, check them out at substats.app. If you're into competitive grappling, Substats is building the analytics layer the sport has been missing with athlete profiles, event intelligence, and match breakdowns. Check them out at substats.app and on Instagram at Substats. Use my promo code TAPTHAT for 10% off of your initial purchase with Substats.
By round. Every card tells a story. Some people watch fight. We study them.
We're chasing what's true. Finding from the prelum lights to the title fight glow. Every round got a lesson if you're watching it slow. Not chasing hot takes, we're chasing what's true. Finding diamonds in the regional scene before they break through. We respect every style, every path, every craft. Break and take frame by frame while the rest just react. No gimmicks, just wiggle every breakdown precise. Where the numbers meet the nuance, that's the edge, that's the price.
Caught myself unprepared. And what is up, everybody? This is Brady Grove bringing you another interlude episode of the Tap That MMA podcast. Again, we got an off week from the UFC this week. Never thought I'd say it in all the years of pay-per-views being separated by months when I first started following the UFC. But God, sometimes an off week is just a breath of fresh air. But because I get to do all these interlude episodes too. Check out the ones that I put out this week with Cornell Beecham Jr., one of the hottest young prospects in the Cincinnati area. And I talked to Combat Loop MMA last night. His phone died about 20 minutes in when we had about 4 hours worth of stuff left to talk about. Then I ended up giving impromptu picks for EFC 135. So we got EFC 135. We got an Aries event this week. We got some boxing and some Cage Warriors. For my picks on all that stuff and more, follow me on Instagram at RotoBrady MMA and on YouTube at Tap That MMA Podcast. Also on Spotify at Tap That MMA Podcast. Looking to do more short video format kind of stuff. So hopefully I get something out for Aries too. That the technical difficulties last night kind of forced me to go ahead and just do the UFC picks anyway. And with me this evening.
Are you a fight fan? Join global ring announcing sensation Chad Fishburne for PFC 53 live from the Comerica Center in Frisco, Texas on July 18th, or tune in on the Peak Fighting app. If you haven't seen a Peak Fighting event, this will be the biggest one yet. Titles will be on the line and Frisco crowds are always energized. Tickets are available online at peakfighting.com. So, are you ready? As Chad likes to say, it's time for this crowd to get loud. Are you
Folks, you heard it there. He is an electric MC and international ring announcer seen on DAZN Boxing, UFC Fight Pass, and Fite TV. Give it up for Chad Fishburne. Chad, thank you so much for being here, man. How's it going?
What's up, brother? Man? Thanks for having me on the show.
Absolutely. And look, I've never had someone in your line of work on the show before. And the first question and the first line of, conversation here that it has to be something you're asked the most frequently. How in God's name did you break into this particular line of work?
This is one of my stories. And if I ever write a book, I'm sure we're in there one day. So I've been alive for about 18 years now. I started with basketball. I was a backup in-game host for the Atlanta Hawks. And a friend that was doing the main job had to so I got to be a stand-in. I did that several times, which was awesome. But I was doing that for the longest time, and to be his stand-in, I did that several times, which was awesome. But I was doing that for the longest time, and I started work. I watched MMA and boxing events, kind of mid-level dudes, and I'm like, not the top-level guys, but some of these, kind of mid-level dudes, and I'm like, I can have a lot of jobs in them, and have a lot of talent, and a decent amount of vocal talent, and have a performance history. So all those things kind of added up to let's do those shots. And then the pandemic came around. There was no events going on. So my wife and I literally created a reel and put that bad boy online in my first gig, and it turned out to be a Muay Thai event in Sweden.
Okay, yeah, I guess that's interesting because when you put it the way you just put it, it makes a lot of sense, because I'm aware that, I'm fascinated by all the different jobs that there are in sports. And so the people that do the in arena, hosting kind of thing for basketball games and football games, there's a person that one or two people that do that stuff for every major and minor professional league and college sporting event in the country. So there's more jobs there than a lot of people may think. And so when you put it that way, that completely makes sense as a segue into that. Different skill set, sure, but a lot of overlap that tells you
Yeah, 100%. So much overlap. And I've been a sports fan since I was little. Grew up, watching it. Obviously, when MMA grew up, I was just always digging it, always watching. And my wife turned to me one day, we're real together. And this happened. I was literally seeing a comedy event. And the guy introduced, I don't know if you know him, but I introduced Daryl Hammond. He was on the show for many years. And the guy looked at me after I introduced Daryl and said, "You're a way better announcer comedian." So I was a little bit pissed because I spent a lot of time in the comedy world between stand up and improv comedy, and so it stung a little bit to receive that, to kind of take it on about it, and then it was one of those where maybe we do something together, and lo and behold.
Well, I mean, there's a place for that in the stand-up world too. Obviously, the hosting part. There's a lot of comedians that are absolute killers in the small room format. But if they were tasked with going out first before somebody and getting the crowd hyped up and in the right energy, they would not be able to do that. So you always, in every facet of life, you play to your strengths. It also is interesting too, because not everybody who's good at energizing people would be a good ring announcer. I'll analyze myself here for a second. I think I'm good at energizing, sure. I just don't, and I think I have the voice that is right for a lot of things. I do not think I have the right voice for doing what you do. I don't have like a deep bellowing voice. Mine's raspy and scratchy, but like in a more what's the word? Not cacophonous, the opposite of that, but you get it. So not everybody can do that. And it's interesting too, like you say, you saw a lot of people doing it, and it's like, I can do that better than them. And that's a big thing I wanted to talk to you about tonight, is what I talk about a lot on here when I have different fighters on and everything, is the varying production quality across the combat sports world. And I mean, certainly at the regional level, but even amongst some of the, the promotions that people would consider top 10 promotions, there's a big disparity in production quality. And I say it all the time with like arena football leagues too. That's something else I'm into. And it's like, it is so frustrating when an organization swears that they want to be good at what they do and they want to put out a high quality product and this and that, and they don't even do the smallest things possible to elevate the quality of the product they put out. It's so... the first steps on your list of we're going to put on a regional MMA event is let's get a ring announcer who's done this before. And if they haven't done it before, find someone who has some similar experience and would be good at it. Not like some dude who's going to like crack a bunch of corny like jokes the whole time and like doesn't know how to, do any of the parts before and after. And they think it's the them show or whatever. Let's get some commentators by the ring that are, knowledgeable enough. We don't want it to be a silent pay-per-view if people are going to pay $20 to watch a regional MMA stream. Let's get some cool lights in here and let's put on like a good show. And a lot of people just cannot do the bare minimum of what it takes to put on a high quality product in that department.
I would agree with that. To work with a lot of promotions. I've also worked for some promotions that don't even hire commentators. They're really like live games, just there to sell tickets. But very fortunate. In California, we worked with Fighting and Bash, and they put on a great show. Next Fighting, and I work with Peak Fighting Championship. I got a show coming up with you heard it in the intro. That's coming up in weeks actually. They put on a great show. Both of those organizations are expectation sports. So it's one of those things that the more I work with more promotions, they're putting on really good shows. They're not necessarily on UFC. So they're usually would say, all right, well, I'm doing the zone show, targeting Fight Pass promotions as well. There's a lot of great organization out of that because we know how big the sport is. There's room for everybody. If you're not putting on a good show and you're hiring just some random jabroni who's is a ham and likes to a microphone. By the way, I fall into that as well. But I know that people are hiring me and I have those great sponsoring. By the way, kudos to you. Fantastic sponsoring of the show. Didn't skip a beat. So kudos to you for those, my man. I mean, seriously, and I respect that they're hiring me. And anybody who does hire me, I know that they're trying to get to the next level, that they're growing, and when you don't want to hire me, then that kind of lets me know that they're okay with where we're at, and have to be cool with that.
Yeah, and you're the second person to say something in 24 hours about like the way in which I do the intro and the promo reads. So I will address. I did used to do like speech and drama competitions like back in middle school, back when I was still like doing like TV auditions and stuff. And I placed pretty high in the state of Kentucky in 6th grade in radio broadcasting, which was like editing real quick, like in a time limit, and then like reading the stuff as polished as possible in a time limit. So like, I guess that's where that comes from. So no, I appreciate you saying that. And that's the thing is, what I told you the first time you messaged me was what I really appreciate about you is that you don't take your spot for granted. And what I mean is there's a lot of dudes that have your job for other promotions or in other places that have that job because they are the dude that does that in a certain geographical area. And they probably don't appreciate the fact that they have that. That's just always what they've done, and so for a lot of those guys, I think it's like, well, who else they going to call? Like, I'm the dude who does this around here. But you have a fantastic focus on your personal brand. And that's amazing because you're in a line of work where there are two really, 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 really famous and successful dudes that have been doing this for a very long time. And they both have the same freaking last name. Didn't even know they were related until like many years into their life. Amazing story. But you know, in a world where, people know who Bruce Buffer and Michael Buffer are, and then you're already getting into territory when you're talking Joe Martin's personal. There we go, Buffer. Buffered. That's in line with what we were talking about. But your focus on your personal brand, I think, is impressive and smart for you to realize, like, dude, like some of these promotions come and go. Like a lot of promotions are not around forever, and for you to see, like, cast a net to see what's out there for you, and keep expanding, your resume that's forward thinking that I don't think you see from a lot of your peers in this particular line of work.
Well, I really appreciate that. There's a lot of work into it. I don't see a lot on reels on YouTube and stuff like that. I'm emailing orders pretty much weekly, and I treat it like a job. Serious about it, and you never know when the opportunities are going to come available. I'm obviously not at the level of the Buff Martinez, which I think Joe's probably the best doing it right now. I couldn't hear exactly what you feel like you said something similar, but yeah, man, it really does take time to get your name out there, and so we're going to keep forward and land one of these big jobs. Long here.
And on the Joe Martinez point, because I hear that a lot now. Like that's an opinion that is gaining a lot of momentum in recent years, and Joe Martinez is fantastic. There's very few people that do what he does to that level. It's interesting because, like, Bruce Buffer and Michael Buffer, like, some of their greatest moments in their career, like the peak of what they get to do. And, when Bruce Buffer announcing, like, one of the biggest gates in the history of the UFC and gets to say the one, the only, whoever he's talking about, like, those are amazing parts. It's just like Bruce Buffer and Michael Buffer have been around for it's closing in on like 40 years now, like doing this. And I think people have become a little numb to, Bruce Buffer, as we kind of get into a newer era of MMA fans that, like, are kind of detaching from some of the nostalgia of past decades. But like Joe Martinez is the future. If I in 30 years am still watching Joe Martinez, on UFC events, that would make perfect sense to me. He's really, really good at what he does.
Yeah, and I mean he's probably heir apparent. I mean, with everything for UFC now. The Apex events, and then the Super Box. The Apex events, and then the Super Box. There's so many great promotions there. There's so many great promotions there that I know that all I got to do is jobs. I have my name on it. I have my name on it. I'm not trying to be great. I'm not trying to be great, but I'm considering myself to be one of the elites in the industry.
Well, there's so much out there in combat sports right now, and it like the dust will eventually settle from this period of time. Like there is, forget how many regional MMA promotions there are, and forget about the new players that are in boxing right now. But then there's Muay Thai has become incrementally more popular on a worldwide basis. I cannot understand why Muay Thai and kickboxing has never caught on in full popularity in America. Americans are just so weird about kicks. I don't know where that comes from. I don't know if that's because of John Wayne or something.
That is weird.
But like, they're so against kicks. And for all the UFC fans that'll bitch on any given week about lack of action or whatever, it's like, dude, watch one Friday fights every single Friday morning, and you will see like 8 of the most exciting fights you've seen all month. Like, Muay Thai is an insane sport. But there's celebrity and influencer boxing now there's a bunch of promotions. There's promotions and agencies that just do that. There's so much out there in the combat sports world right now that it's hard to know exactly what the next 10 to 15 years of all of combat sports looks like. I don't know if we know like in real time that we're in like a bubble and part of it might eventually pop, but we don't know, we don't know what's going to happen with Zuffa boxing. That's a new thing. And, we've seen plenty of new and exciting things in the history of combat sports that are there for a second and then they're not anymore. So, there's a lot of opportunities, but ultimately, I think the opportunities and the jobs that are worth having on a long-term basis will eventually reveal themselves steadily.
I wholeheartedly agree. And like the striking martial arts definitely on the rise, and one of my favorite martial arts. I trained a little bit of it a long time ago. Black belt, age 18, and the kicks are always my favorite technique. So I don't know why. I agree with you. I'm not sure why. People want to. I think they're awesome. It goes for mixed martial arts, or just martial arts in general. But there's some of the most coolest to watch in my opinion. But I love that. Boxing obviously having its moment. So I don't know exactly what the future looks like, but the striking martial arts are because they're the most exciting. People want to see knockouts, and that's the bottom line.
And I always found it strange that the UFC decided to invest so heavily in the professional grappling department when it seems like you're fighting a much greater uphill battle with but at the same time there's less competition. You don't have to at that point, like, UFC Fight Pass is competing with federations that are not necessarily broadcasting their events, so like you get to put on the best fights with the best fighters. So that makes sense. Bare knuckle is amazing. So like BKFC and BYB, I think, have done the things that you should do if you want to hang around for a while. We've seen so many combat sports promotions do exactly what we know is the wrong formula for long-term success. It's the same as when a spring football league pops up and they want to throw a ton of money at, some one-star dude, to come over and carry the face of, i.e. the Herschel Walker method from the 80s. But like bare knuckle, they've made their name, because obviously a bunch of like former UFC fighters and everything who have been really successful have gone over to bare knuckle. But bare knuckle has really like the pillar that supports it are these guys that are uniquely bare knuckle fighters. They're not boxers. And they have MMA and boxing experience on their resume, but for one reason or another, it didn't work out as well for them in that. And there's something about the skill set that is required for bare knuckle that appeals to some dudes better than others. And you see people that are able to prolong their career by a while because they're in bare knuckle. And as crazy as it might be to people outside of the combat sports world, you can prolong your career by fighting bare knuckle as opposed to taking punch after punch and TKO over the course of 3 rounds in an MMA fight. So bare knuckle, even though there's a lot of, hoopla around it, like with Conor McGregor's involvement now, but like it's always been like Mike Perry, like has, made a big part of that. And BYB's done a lot of the right things. They have a very strong like European foothold. They have Mike Goldberg, I believe, still on the mic for that promotion. So bare knuckle, as opposed maybe to some of the rumblings that there were about karate combat, the bare knuckle people seem to have been doing the right things. And it would be easy to think that bare knuckle would be a flash in the pan a handful of years ago, but they have such a strong foothold now. And I hear such good things from fighters that fight under those banners that it seems like there's no reason to think that it would be going anywhere in, the foreseeable future.
Yeah, I would agree with that. I think I want to see more, especially here in the States. I actually have an event coming up after Peak Fighting in Indiana, as a matter of fact. Great promotion. I like promotion, and they do as well as Muay Thai. So I'm on that show.
And isn't it interesting that even among American dudes that are like into combat sports, if you walk into an MMA gym, the average MMA gym in America, the classes that will be the most full are the jiu-jitsu classes, gi and no gi. You meet a lot of jiu-jitsu bros in America that like would really never even consider doing any Muay Thai sparring. And they're fine. Dude, I don't know if it's the freaking heat in Kentucky right now, but the internet. But you don't see as much willingness even from people that are like super into MMA and combat sport. Jiu-jitsu has become like it's like the jogging or the bike riding of the combat sports world. It's what a lot of people, and I don't mean that in any negative way. I just mean that like if there are dudes that are like looking into that realm for exercise and as a hobby, like they're mostly going the jiu-jitsu route. It's a lot more of, it is certainly a more tranquil martial art. And I love no-gi jiu-jitsu. I put gi jiu-jitsu like in the rear view. I've done enough like summer mornings in like a gym that was a warehouse wearing a gi and feeling like I was going to die of heat stroke. And so I love no-gi jiu-jitsu. But at this stage of my life, when I've got a wife and a son who's, almost 3 and we have another kid on the way, the thing that I'm making the time for is going to Muay Thai classes and sparring. I love rolling no-gi, but I don't know how to explain to people how much fun it is to do Muay Thai sparring against people. That's always appealed more to me, but it just doesn't for the masses in America for whatever reason. It's not in the fighting DNA of the United States for whatever reason.
Yeah. When I was in Europe for Muay Thai event, they just get super hard. I don't know what to see, but I don't know what I shows overseas, and it is just awesome to watch the crowd get in. They're ready. They're just, and I love it. They're ready.
Buffering there for a second. Damn it. God damn it. And maybe it'll take in the future, maybe it'll take like an American, dude going over to, Singapore and winning on a really high level, because you got to think that one of the barriers to people from America getting into Muay Thai and kickboxing is that Thailand is among the world leaders in names that are difficult to pronounce for at least for people from the United States.
Yes.
It's why like when you have a name like Stamp Fairtex or Rod Tang, it goes a long way. Like a name that's almost a moniker, because for the rest of the field outside of Asia, it is hard to just gain the individual recognition from a lot of the Western world that's into combat sports.
No, I know where you're from there. I've a fantastic point. So I it probably will. People that look like this, Americans can actually follow and for him. Yeah, I mean, I think is real. As an announcer, more than anybody. I have run into this, especially in those European where I'm like, oh dear God. It's just for me. I have gotten to where I will text the fighter and please send me a voice on how you'd like to pronounce your name, your nickname, where you're from, all of that, because I don't want to get involved. For me, it's a big respect thing, and I'm not going to fuck it up. So.
Yeah, like that's like your, every job has some level of like outside of the job preparation and homework that you got to do. And that's yours is, and when I have a fighter on here, it's being able to discuss their previous fights and the way that they fight, as opposed to making them tell me, through the course of the entire time. That's, those are things that set you apart from the rest of the people that do whatever it is that anybody's doing. And yeah, I mean, I don't think people appreciate either. Like, it's one thing to have a voice note that tells you how to pronounce a name, but in the moment with the microphone, with people watching and the stream going, the lights are hot, being able to remember it and make your mouth and tongue make that exact noise is a whole different thing. That takes a lot more than listening to a voice note.
You want to hear on that?
Yeah.
I spell their name. So like if it's let's think of one where there was one recently where there was a Latino fighter. Their name was Ron Hair, and it was RANJR. Spell it that way for success. Help me pronounce it. You know what I'm saying? Like I'm gonna spell it BRANDIR, so I know to say Ron Hair, because even though that's not how you spell it, that is how you say it, and that's my goal. Nobody's checking my note card. Hey dude, you spelled it wrong.
Brilliant. No, that makes perfect sense. So, a big part of doing what you do is because, if you were to take a stopwatch and calculate the amount of time that you're talking into the microphone during an event, it's not hours, it's these are limited bursts of time where you have to do your job and to also make your mark as an individual. And so such a big part of what you do is having signature elements that set you apart. With Bruce Buffer and Michael Buffer, they kept it simple and it worked for them for decades. Let's get ready to rumble. It's time. Everybody's got like their thing. How did what was ended up being the process for you and kind of identifying your signature elements and the way that you do your job just a little bit differently and a little bit better than the rest of the people?
That is a great question. My catchphrase, trademark actually. It's time for this loud. It definitely took some work. But I early on because put the effort in because of Bruce Michael wanted to have something people could latch on to and remember, and they know. Oh, that's Chad. He's doing this event. Cool. I know he's energetic and fun. I definitely there was some writing and making sure that it sounded cool. I have to time it a little bit easier to remember. That's some other ones that almost made the cut, but I'm trying to remember what in place. It was. Are you ready for somebody to throw down or something? It was fine. It was. We settled on the right one, and the point when everyone is apart, and I feel like part of it. Some of the other things that you kind of have happened in the moment, like the way that I KO. It's just the inflection of my voice. knockout is one thing. And I think everybody's aware of doing it. Everything that I do, I try and focus on it wholeheartedly. All of my attention, my energy to show. People believe this, but at the end of the show, I've done 18, 19 bouts. Toast, bro. My everything not to be.
I mean, you can see it on like Bruce Buffer's face, like at the end of it. And that guy's, he's up there in age now. He's done this a million times. You see it at the end of an event, like he's spent, like Otis Redding, like on his knees on stage. Like that's what that looks like. Sweat and. When you're coming up with your individual, trademarks, figurative and literal trademarks, there's like, you want to come up with as much that's individual and unique as possible. At the same time, I'm sure you got to like try to not feel the pressure of thinking like, oh, but like, I can't fist bump the fighters because Bruce Buffer does that, or I can't I can't wear a tux like that because like someone else. So like, you've got to, there's got to be something that, because when we're talking about the window of time that you have to work, and let's just say like coming up with the catchphrase, English language that, form a phrase short enough to be palatable for that setting. You don't get, 70 characters to work that out. And so I see why that's got to be so tough for some people to come up with. At the same time, I don't know if there's anything more important for someone in your spot trying to, market themselves, and find other opportunities, because it's rare, if you hear a lot of people's performances that are just kind of like, they're underwhelming, they're professional, they did their job, but it's, you could switch them out with a lot of different people and you'd probably get about the same quality. You also, not even just from like some of the goofballs that are in like jean shorts and cowboy hats and shit, like, and that's fine for the setting. Like if you're at Redneck Brawls, that's exactly what you should be doing. That setting does not call for the ring announcer to be in a tuxedo. No. But we've all heard bad catchphrases. And it sucks the energy out of the room just for a second. You get past it, but when you hear a bad catchphrase, it's like, I'm going to remember you for the wrong reasons, bro.
Yeah. It's definitely happened. I'm not going to, but in some of them, I'm impressed that it's caught on like they have like for Jimmy Lennon. I'm naming him. He's a professional. But it's okay. It's definitely shocking. We all know that, but I mean, like, time was actually put into. It's time. I mean, that's one. I love me some Bruce. Bruce is great. But the gold standard for the longest time was obviously Mike, and it wasn't just because he had a phrase. His vocal quality and talent. I mean, like the way that he would put together an intro. I mean, like I don't know if he wrote it out or if he just freestyled it. I'm sure he probably had together and he wrote it out. The way that he or if he just freestyled it, I'm sure he probably had some notes. Bro just crushed it every single time. Bro just crushed it every single time.
And I mean, Let's Get Ready to Rumble, so iconic. They named a goddamn video game series after it. The way that he delivered it is like Vegas, old school, like Rat Pack, like very professional but still with energy. But it just kind of like bubbles out of him so pretty when he says it, and really, maybe too much weight has been put into both of their catchphrases, because really, what are you feeling? Let's say before, trying to pick like an absolutely crazy one, like. Before we see, like, McGregor versus Eddie Alvarez in New York City or whatever, Bruce Buffer could say sweet potato pie instead of it's time. And I don't know if it would matter. You know, what you're feeling, what I always feel when I think of Bruce Buffer is the like elation and the butterflies that I get when it's a real main event that you're super looking forward to, which are rare in this era of like so many more UFC events. You know, I think MMA fans, I think, have this issue of chasing nostalgia, which is like kind of a disease in its own. Like, it's not coming back. Whatever era you're thinking of, you know, even if they tried to recreate it, you know, we see that with reboots and remakes, it's hard to recreate feelings like that. But with Bruce Buffer, what I think of when I think about how great he is at his job, it's the way that I feel right before the main event happens, you know, and the catchphrase, and Michael Buffer, when he says, let's get ready to rumble, what you're thinking of is not necessarily let's get ready to rumble. It's a Pavlovian response, and the dinner bell means that you're about to see two dudes fight for the World Heavyweight Championship, you know? So the lesson to take from it, I think, is that people in your job can never phone it in, can never be complacent with a single performance, because that is the single key to the success of those two, even as they get up there in age.
No, I wholeheartedly agree. I try and treat every fight the main event a little bit of energy. That's why I feel like that's why I feel like these top level guys, like level guys. Bruce, like more obviously, and there's more obviously, but they're all into the show as well. They're all into the show as well, and I feel like just because they're not on the main card or in the main event, I'm taking their fight lightly because I don't know who's in the crowd for them. Their last show, we don't know what's happening. It's the dangerous sport. So I'm going to give them an A+ performance, not just for them, but for their family and for the family out in the crowd or watching from home.
And an interesting, and maybe you disagree with the comparison here. We'll say the cousin of the ring announcer, I would say, is like the people that serve in the ring girl function. Commentators are probably another cousin of that. But like the interesting thing about ring girls in general is as we got into the late 2010s and 2020s, it would have been something that you thought maybe would have been left in the past of MMA and of boxing. We just got into an era where you just figured people would be just less and less cool about it. But I think the opposite has actually happened. I think that opportunities for ring girls, I think that they're abundant. There's management agencies that just, handle ring girl stuff. And what I always point out to people is like, if you're talking a regional MMA show, you have to put effort into selecting ring girls. If you are a promotion, let's say like Redneck Brawls or something that just, it's not lower quality, but something that is a less lounge Vegas classy feel to it. If we're talking like down and dirty regional MMA, they should be having ring girl contests every single event that they do. It's such a good, thing to bring in a different audience, one to the event. And, naturally the crowds are a big fan of them. And in any room in a regional MMA promotion, there's a very good chance that the women that are the ring girls have more Instagram followers than maybe all the fighters on the card combined. And it's not, holding the card that says the ring on whatever, outfits or whatever they have them in on that night. That's the least important job of what they do, especially at the higher levels of MMA. For years, Ariane Celeste was like one of the more like workhorse ambassadors of the UFC. You need those people that are going to be at meet and greets and VIP events that are there and signing posters and taking pictures with kids and everything. Like that is a huge function of putting out, entertaining product. And for the same reasons that I kind of started talking about on the show with, I think a lot of people phone that in. I think a lot of people are really lazy in that department, and it shows, and the quality of the product suffers.
No, I would agree with that. It is one of those things where people approach it from female empowerment and like what you were just saying. Here's a perfect example. I mean that's a role that I did, and I'm sure Brandon. I know I do because it hires me. A ring announcer, immediately become one of that brand. If you're looking up time and again, and we've been on numerous occasions. Very grateful for that. Yeah, you're putting out co-branded content on social media. Your name along their event. So absolutely a premium value. And you have to do a good job and just like I agree with you that just like any commentator, just like ring announcer, they're gonna bring the girls are gonna have eyes who that position, and so it's the right one.
And I mean, the same as being able to put on female fights. I think as MMA tries to expand its fan base still, because I knew that was coming. So where was I going with it? I think that anytime that you can get more women in the room that are not necessarily personally attached to watching one fighter who they're there for, I think that you give yourself more of a chance to open yourself up to a greater audience. I think every professional sport out there, let's take the NFL because it's the most insulting of the examples. They've made it very clear that what they want is to get more women to watch, because that is, that's the biggest untapped group in the United States that they want to market products to. And there's a lot more money in marketing money to, market stuff to women as opposed to men. Otherwise they wouldn't be doing that. At the same time, their attempts are dumb as hell. When so many people are probably passively watching along with you, along with dudes that are in the room watching football anyway, the ways that some people go about trying to get that audience doesn't make a whole lot of sense. And even the whole Taylor Swift thing, I'm sure that worked for a short period of time. Obviously it did. Every time you got on the internet, you saw hashtag Taylor Swift. Here's what she's doing with Travis Kelce and everything, and whatever, that makes sense to pump it while you can. But MMA, I think, is one where if you can just women have had plenty of time to decide whether they like pro basketball or not. They've had plenty of time to decide whether they like pro football or not. And I think there's a lot, we are seeing it now. There's a lot more women that love jiu-jitsu and love striking, and they're realizing it for the first, because they just it wasn't as, out there in front of them as some of the other pro sports. And so anytime you can just get some more people in the room and expose them to what the sport is, I think that you're putting yourself in a good position, because if you put people in a room with mixed martial arts, boxing, Muay Thai, whatever, I would put money down that they would enjoy it. There's always people that find that stuff too brutal, and I don't know what to say about that. That's just a whole other universe from where I'm living. Then, in your role, like you were talking about, when you are hired by a promotion, even if it's a promotion you've never worked for before, even if you never heard from them before, you're immediately one of their number one fans and one of their biggest, social media promoters, because you want as many people to show up and to tune in to watch it just as much as that promotion does.
Yeah, absolutely, man. And to your earlier about just latching on to and Muay Thai with females, in any sport, because you brought up basketball, and that's a perfect example. Like Caitlin Clark, I'm not gonna pretend that I'm a huge basketball fan, but when she caught fire, I started to pay attention because I didn't watch, and you know what I mean. All of the reaction, it's legit. And I also think about WWE, the fact that their audience is heavily female. I don't feel like to them. I do a good job, and they have a lot of ass athletes. I used to watch some matches in WWE, and it was like, okay, that's fine. But now male matches are the most exciting. So I think it just takes latching on to a talent and sometimes just to appreciate everything the sports have to offer. I know that like Invicta, for example, all female, MMA. They put on a great show. UFC Fight Pass, I just think it really just one thing for somebody to attract fans' attention, and then it just kind of blossoms from there. Fans' attention, and a lot of then it just badass females kind of blossoms from there. So you never really think we could see a lot of badass females out there. And PFL and UFC, we could see more of that on some of the cards with PFL and UFC, like the tier cards. So.
And what with WWE, because I've never, the thing is, I didn't start off life as a pro wrestling fan. Like, I wasn't a pro wrestling fan as a kid, and so that area of the world just passed me by. There's no I've tried it. The same with NASCAR and tennis. I have really made an honest effort to all right, let's see what this is about, and then eventually it's just it's just not for me. That part passed me by. There's things that I'm into. There's things that I'm not. This is just in a category. But with WWE, you see, go on Instagram. It's a great sample of the world that we're evolving into. There are so many women out there making an effort to be professional wrestlers, for so many different promotions. And you know what people like? People don't, men or women, they don't give a shit about the gimmicks or, how do we sell this to women? You know what people like is watching people that are kind of like them, that they can relate to, doing something at an amazing level. Yeah. There's plenty of people that do stuff at an amazing level. And then there's the electricity factor. Mighty Mouse Mighty Mouse is one of the greatest fighters of all time. And never really had that electricity factor and sometimes people just grow numb to greatness. It was also a period where people were just still down on the flyweights. But there's just some people have an electricity factor. Take Ronda Rousey. I assure you, folks, everywhere out there in the world, and people can argue it, I'd be glad to entertain the debate. No one gives a shit that Ronda Rousey was in the ESPN The Body issue. No one really seemed to care at the time that, they're look at Ronda Rousey, isn't she hot? It's I don't know, man. Who cares? She has an electric personality that you cannot manufacture. And what people gravitated to was that, and the way that she was winning those fights. I remember equally as a kid in middle school at the time, being in absolute awe of the way that Ronda Rousey was winning fights. And ultimately, it was the quality of her as a fighter mixed with that extra special something that not everybody, not even a lot of people in the world will have. That is what brought people in. And, the world of women's MMA has never been the same after Ronda Rousey.
100%. I wholeheartedly agree. Is one of the biggest stars in the sport. Well deserved. And was badass still is. And the MMA world definitely a debt of gratitude.
And I love Invicta. I love that promotion. I love especially maybe a few years ago, if you were an Invicta champion, you were on a short list to get a UFC title shot in a couple of weight classes very quickly. We saw it at women's featherweight where Megan Anderson, Felicia Spencer, they were like, fast tracked after being Invicta champ. They put on atomweight fights. In fact, I love the atomweight division. Would love to see it be in the UFC as soon as possible. But like that is a format, that is a platform where like women do everything. It's a women that Shannon Knapp does a great job of running it. The only complaint, go back to my episode with Katie Perez, folks. Our only complaint is that there's not more Invicta. But I see why it would be a slower process for women to break into the position that you're in, just for the fact that most of the audience is probably going to be male, and so it's easier for the crowd to relate to someone that looks and sounds like them. But in your experience, are you seeing like any, gradual changes? And it doesn't have to be men and women. Like, are you seeing any gradual changes in the way that promotions and companies are approaching how they look at the job that you do?
I've had more time with that one, and because I don't know. I don't know. I know is the research. Who are they currently working? And sometimes I know who it is, but I go after any promotion. I know that I'm trying to take someone's job. I'm trying to do my family. So it doesn't matter if it's male or female, what the case may be. But I guess to fully answer your question, it's honestly hard to say. Because for the most part, it is dominated. There are some females out there that are really good. WWE's got some really strong female announcers. You see a lot of them in wrestling, but there are some in combat sports as well. And you see a lot of them in wrestling, but there are some in combat sports as well. And the guys are probably going to enjoy it more. But to your point, the guys are probably going to enjoy it more. But I'm just trying to be the best showman that I can be, so I'm hoping to hire me.
And so last little topic here as we approach an hour, and we have filled with like quite a dense amount of conversation here. Love it. Just like with stand-up comedy, you hear different things from comedians that are, when they're filming a special or when they're on tour, and it's like, I love going to Denver and I love going to Minneapolis, and I absolutely hated that room in Albuquerque or that room in, Orlando or whatever the hell. Different states, different pockets of people have their own culture. They act different. They have different personalities. And you go over to Japan, you see how different, a live MMA crowd can possibly act. It's the polar opposite. Same with Japanese baseball too. Yet like and this isn't even relevant to what I'm saying, but like I've always loved the Japanese flair for showmanship and dramaticism, even with the more stoic, educated way that like they take that kind of stuff in. But like, I know that you've done events all over the place. You in this upcoming event that you're going to be doing in July, that's going to be in Texas. A place where the only sports that they don't turn out the best prospects in the world is sports that require snow. Baseball players, basketball, football, fighters, so many great athletes coming out of Texas, and so many people of different cultural backgrounds in Texas that you could take a pro pickleball league to Texas, and I'm sure there's probably in Austin, but there's probably a facet of people that is going to show up and be super passionate about watching it. What have you found to be some of the like interesting differences between some of the different places that you've traveled to do this job?
One of my favorite stories. Is land in Spain, and that's because I did not Spanish, and that was my own. But yeah, I spoke some Spanish. Just kind of. But when I said it's kind of, it was crickets. And so I'm trying to get people hyped. Nah, bro. No, you had us a minute ago. You Spanish to us. And then you tried to do your catchphrase. So shut the fuck up. And bring the fighters into the cage and let them. Your point.
Oh, that's got to be a tough. I mean, like what probably felt like minutes, what maybe felt like an hour, and what was just a few seconds. Like that is a moment where you're like, all right, now this improvisational comedy training comes back to me. What do I do now? Because the part where I usually say this thing and people make the noise I'm expecting and I move on to the next step, that part didn't happen. What the hell do I do now?
Yeah, that's where training has to come in. Speaking of comedy, not all the jokes land. So you have to ready to move on to the next one. Not in this particular case, but ready to move on to the next thing. Because after your catchphrase going to announce the blue corner or the red corner, and it's like you're not gonna respond. Introducing verse. Corner, and then we on with it because you know what I mean. Like that's all. Must go on. I didn't get the reaction I wanted. Boo hoo.
Hey, look, like part of this job too, like obviously you've worked, very hard at your craft and, have spent a lot of time polishing this and getting it to the point where like you're a professional that does this like on an international level. At the same time, man, you got to look in a mirror and realize that there are some inherent qualities that that some people will okay, you could not look necessarily, you could try. You couldn't necessarily look like George Costanza and do this job at like the top peak level. Like there's, look at Bruce Buffer's hair, the way he wears those damn smoking jackets. You look at you. You look at the way that your hair falls, your facial structure, the like timbre of your voice. Like you've got a very like when they put together, when whatever cosmic forces or higher powers are out there before we gain our consciousness and begin our life, someone was like, put together the template of an MC. Like, yes, that dude. Like, you very much, and whether it's fighting or whether it's the pro basketball games and getting the arena hype, or whether you were wearing like a top hat with a cane and you were telling everybody welcome to the circus, like I think that you just have some qualities that everybody doesn't that make you better suited for that job.
Well, I appreciate that. And honestly, kind of come on later in life. Specific job. Earlier, there's definitely overlap. A big overlap in hosts, ring announcers, anybody that's microphone at the end of the day. But it took me a while. And I feel like I'm in the space. That's why I'm putting my foot on the gas. All of my energy in. But I definitely the kind words from your lips. Hopefully that'll get me some of these big things.
Folks, this has been another interlude episode of the Tap That MMA podcast. Again, this is a UFC off week. Check out, the couple of episodes I've already put out this week with Cincinnati MMA prospect Cornell Beecham Jr. And my technically broken up conversation with Combat Loop MMA last night that turned into an impromptu EFC 135 picks episode. Got more stuff on the schedule coming up. Hey, the U.S. is up 1-0 on Bosnia here, 76 minutes into this match to see if we get a rematch with those dirty wafflers over there in Belgium. And this has been a conversation with global ring announcer and electric cage personality, Chad Fishburne. Chad, thank you so much for being here tonight. I'm really glad we were able to do this. And if there's anything else you want to say or anybody you want to shout out, the floor is yours.
I appreciate it, brother. Thanks so much for having me. Yeah, make sure you guys check out PFC 53 coming up on July 18th. That'll be in Frisco, Texas. They're actually on Expectation Sports now. P53. You can check them out on July 18th. You can check them out on Expectation 25th. And then the following week, I have a show for Indiana. That is a movie show for Prime. Stay tuned for that. I'm on, and so stay tuned for that. I'm on Instagram, on the gram. And Chad Fishburne. So yeah, the gram.
And folks, just in case it was buffering in that last portion here, where you're at right now in streaming right now, where there's like a heat wave of like 100 degrees, and I think you're buffering right there. We go. You're right there. There we go. I see you blinking. I don't. Does heat affect the internet? It simply must. But just in case Chad was buffering there at the end of what he was saying, Jesus Christ, load. There we go. You can follow Chad on Instagram. You can follow Chad Fishburne on Instagram at MC Chad Fishburne. That is EMCEE Chad Fishburne with an E at the end. And we'll play it off here, folks. Thanks for listening. Have yourselves a great week. Back to business as usual next week before Conor McGregor versus Max Holloway 2. Apparently that main event is still scheduled. Peace and go USA.
Thanks, Brady. Thanks, Brady.
Sensation Chad Fishburne for PFC 53 live from the
Outlet turned it off. Yeah. All right. See you, folks.